Season finales are supposed to give you closure. They're supposed to tie things together, maybe leave you with one burning question to carry you into the next season. Dutton Ranch looked at that idea and threw it straight into the fire. Instead of answers, we got a war declaration. Instead of peace, we got a child stolen in the night. Instead of justice, we got a body on the floor and a daughter who will never be the same again. But here's the thing that nobody is talking about. Hidden inside all of that devastation, inside the gunfire, the grief, and the chaos, the writers planted something. A thread so subtle, so carefully placed, that most viewers blew right past it. Today, we are pulling that thread. And when it unravels, Season 2 is going to make a whole lot more terrifying sense. To truly understand what Season 2 of Dutton Ranch is setting up, you have to go back to the exact moment the finale shifted from tense to truly terrifying. Because there was a turning point in that episode. Not the gunfight, not the kidnapping, not even the murder. Where you could feel the entire show change direction. Where the rules of the Dutton Ranch world quietly got rewritten. And most people were so caught up in the spectacle that they didn't feel it happen. It starts with Rip and Beth. These two have always operated like a force of nature on this ranch. Unpredictable, violent when necessary, but always in control of their own story. They were digging into the smuggling operation with Everett's help, and what they found turned their world sideways. Drugs hidden inside the stomachs of cattle. Not just a criminal enterprise living on the edge of their land. A full, deeply embedded operation that had been growing right underneath them the entire time. The ranch they have been bleeding and fighting to protect was already compromised from the inside. That moment of discovery, that look between Rip and Beth when the reality of what they had uncovered hit them, that is where the season stopped being about survival and started being about war. Then Everett brought Beulah into the center of it all. And what she confessed changed everything we thought we understood. She wasn't just a player in this criminal network. She was its architect, at least in part, carrying a secret so heavy it had bent her entire life out of shape. She admitted to being raped. She admitted to killing Rob Will's father. And then, in a move that tells you everything about how trapped she felt, she admitted she blamed the crime on Mariano Reyes. Think about what that confession actually means. Mariano, the cartel boss who has since become the greatest external threat the Dutton Ranch has ever faced, has been carrying the weight of a crime he didn't commit. And the woman who set him up has been standing right there, managing a drug business to keep a ranch afloat, pretending none of it ever happened. Rip and Beth's response to all of this was completely in character, and that's exactly what makes it so interesting. They didn't spiral. They made a decision. They gave Mariano's drugs back to Beulah and cut her loose. It was a calculated move. Protect the ranch, remove the contamination, draw a line. But by drawing that line, they also unknowingly loaded the gun that would fire at them by the end of the episode. Because here's what they couldn't have predicted. Rob Will taking over the ranch was already a powder keg. When Waqen reached across the border and called his father, Mariano Reyes, everything accelerated. Mariano didn't hesitate. He arrived, he cornered Beulah, and he made his demand clear. His son would take control of the ranch. Full stop, no negotiation. This is a man who operates on power, not conversation. And when Rip's crew managed to hold their ground in that gunfight and repel Mariano's men, everyone watching felt a rush of relief. The ranch held, the Duttons held. But that relief was the trap, because right when viewers exhaled, the show delivered its gut punch. Rob Will, after a tender and heartbreaking moment with his daughter Oriana, a scene that felt deliberately placed to make you care, to make you feel the weight of what was coming, opened his front door and was shot dead. Just like that. And Oriana found him. A daughter found her father's body, and the show let that sit. It didn't rush past it. It let you feel every second of it. That moment is the line the season finale drew in the ground. Before that shot, Dutton Ranch was a battle over land and power. After that shot, it became something far more personal, far more dangerous. Because now a child has been traumatized, a family has been shattered, and Carter, a boy who had finally found something close to safety, was snatched right out of a place he thought was his refuge. Mariano took him, not as a bargaining chip in some distant criminal transaction, as a personal message sent directly to Beth and Rip. You hurt me. Now watch what I do to the people you love. Season 2 doesn't begin with a question. It begins with a declaration of total war. Here is the moment most viewers missed, and it's not a background Easter egg or a piece of set decoration. It's a character choice, a single action by a single person that quietly rewrites the entire power dynamic going into season 2. When Rob Will was shot, the camera didn't show you the shooter. That was intentional. The show didn't hide the shooter to create a mystery for the audience to solve. It hid the shooter because the answer, once you absorb it, changes how you feel about almost every character still standing. We saw Waqen sitting in his car outside the house. We saw a gun in his hand. And we know, Misha, because Mariano made it explicit, that the price for Waqen to take complete control was the elimination of his own brother. So let's sit with that for a moment. Waqen didn't just betray a business partner or a rival. He was asked, potentially ordered, to kill his own brother. The brother whose daughter, Oriana, was inside that house. The brother who, just moments before, had shared what looked like a final tender conversation. Whether Waqen pulled that trigger himself or sent someone in his place, the weight of that act belongs to him. And the show knows that. The writers positioned that car, that gun, that silence very deliberately. But here's the hidden detail inside the hidden detail. Beulah knew, or she should have known. This woman is sharp enough to have kept a conspiracy buried for years, sharp enough to have run a drug operation underneath the noses of everyone on that ranch, sharp enough to have manipulated the truth about Mariano for decades. When Rob Will died, right at the moment of Mariano's arrival, right after his men were repelled, anyone with Beulah's intelligence and history would immediately start doing the math. The timing is not coincidental. It is practically a signature. The detail viewers missed is not just that Waqen is likely the killer. It's that Beulah is now sitting on the most dangerous knowledge in the entire show. She knows what she did to Mariano. She knows how Rob Will died and why. She knows who benefits, and she is still alive, still sharp, and now, for the first time, she has absolutely nothing left to lose. The ranch is compromised. Her secret is out to Rip and Beth. Rob Will, the man she was tangled up with in all of this, is gone. A woman like Beulah, backed into a corner with nothing to protect and everything to prove, is arguably more dangerous than any cartel. Because she doesn't need an army. She just needs to start talking to the right people at the right moment. Now connect this to season 2. If Beulah begins piecing together that Waqen killed his own brother, and she will because that's who she is, she becomes a wild card that neither Mariano nor Waqen can afford to ignore. She's not an ally for Rip and Beth exactly, but she's not their enemy anymore either. She's something more volatile than both. She is someone who knows the truth about almost everyone in this story and has just become completely unpredictable. There's another layer here that connects to the cartel operation itself. The drugs hidden in the cattle were not a small-scale operation. That kind of smuggling takes logistics, relationships, and time, which means it didn't start recently. It means the ranch has been infiltrated, genuinely deeply infiltrated, for far longer than anyone on the Dutton side was willing to admit. Season 2 is likely going to force that reckoning, not just the immediate violence of Carter's kidnapping and Mariano's war, but the slower, uglier question of how much of what they thought they controlled was actually already gone. When you put all of these threads together, Beulah's survivor's guilt and dangerous knowledge, Waqen's possible fratricide, the scope of the smuggling operation, and Mariano's personal fury, you're not looking at a standard Season 2 escalation. You're looking at a complete restructuring of who the real threats are and where they're hiding. And the most dangerous ones might not be the ones carrying guns. This is where things get genuinely exciting. Because the setup that Season 1 has laid out doesn't just point toward more of the same drama. It could mean the entire world of this show is about to expand in ways that feel both surprising and completely logical in retrospect. Let's start with the most immediate theory. Carter is in Mexico. This isn't just fan speculation. It's the move that makes the most strategic sense for Mariano. Bringing Carter across the border puts him outside of any legal protection, removes Rippy and Beth's ability to call in law enforcement without crossing jurisdictional lines, and forces the fight onto Mariano's turf. Cole Howser, who plays Rip, teased that once Carter gets taken, it's game on. That phrase, game on, doesn't suggest a careful, measured response. That suggests Rip is going to go scorched earth. And going scorched earth against a cartel boss in Mexico means going somewhere you can't come back from clean. This leads to a theory that this could mean Season 2 has a fundamentally different visual and geographic identity from Season 1. If Beth and Rip are crossing the border to chase Mariano down and bring Carter home, the show transforms from a ranch drama with criminal elements into something that looks a lot more like a revenge thriller operating in cartel territory. The stakes go from protecting a piece of land to entering a war zone where the rules of the Dutton Ranch world don't apply, where Rip's reputation means nothing, where Beth's legal mind and brutal instincts might be the only thing keeping either of them alive. Now here's the theory that has the entire fan base divided, and I think it's worth taking seriously. The crossover. Kelly Riley, who plays Beth, has hinted, carefully but clearly, that Season 2 is going to feel bigger, with all 4 or 5 lead characters getting their moment in the spotlight. One of the most logical explanations for that expansion is a crossover with Yellowstone's world, specifically with Casey Dutton and his U.S. Marshals storyline. The parallel is almost too clean to be accidental. Both shows are dealing with kidnapped children, Carter taken by Mariano's cartel. Tate, in the Yellowstone universe, taken by Tom Weaver. It's possible, and I want to be clear this is theory territory, that Tom Weaver and Mariano Reyes have a connection through a shared criminal network along the Texas-Mexico border. If that theory holds, then Casey Dutton following Tate's trail into Texas wouldn't just be a coincidence of geography. It would be the convergence of 2 storylines that were always heading toward the same point. The idea that Beth and Casey, Dutton siblings who have been separated by circumstance and story for so long, could meet again while both fighting to bring their sons home, that is genuinely powerful storytelling. Riley even said directly that she thinks Beth misses her brother, that she'd love to see that reunion happen. That's not nothing. That's a showrunner-adjacent hint wrapped in emotional honesty. There's also the landman angle, which is a more speculative theory, but one that has interesting structural logic behind it. Both Dutton Ranch and Landman operate in overlapping criminal geography: Texas, Mexico, cartel networks, border crime. It's possible that Taylor Sheridan, who has always played the long game with his shared universe, could use Galeno from Landman and Mariano from Dutton Ranch as a bridge between those worlds. They're operating in similar criminal circles. It wouldn't require a leap of logic. It would just require the right scene, the right phone call, the right moment where 2 universes quietly acknowledge each other. The complicating factor, and I'll be honest about this because the theory has a real problem, is that Dutton Ranch's character Azul and Landman's character Manuel are played by the same actor. That casting overlap makes a direct crossover logistically awkward. Unless the show addresses it directly, it creates a visual paradox that audiences would immediately notice. So this particular theory feels more like a possibility that Sheridan is building towards slowly rather than something Season 2 will make explicit. It could mean the worlds are spiritually connected without being literally the same universe. Or it could mean the casting was a coincidence that gets quietly ignored. Either way, it's a thread worth watching. What feels most certain, not as fact but as logical prediction, is that Rip won't be going after Mariano alone. The idea of familiar faces from other corners of this universe arriving to help feels like exactly the kind of escalation this show has been building toward. And Casey Dutton showing up at the Texas-Mexico border with federal intelligence, while Beth shows up with controlled fury and zero regard for due process, that feels like the kind of team-up that this shared universe has been quietly promising since the beginning. If the Season 1 finale was the match, Season 2 is the wildfire. And here's the thing about wildfires. They don't just burn what you expect them to burn. They jump roads, they cross rivers, they take things you thought were safe. Let's talk about Rip first, because the framing around his character going into Season 2 is important. Cole Hauser's comments weren't just casual promotion. When an actor says it's game on, he's describing a version of his character that is operating at maximum capacity with nothing held back. We have seen Rip be ruthless before. We have seen him handle violence with a kind of cold precision that makes other characters on this show look reckless by comparison. But we have not yet seen Rip in a situation where the person he loves most, like a son, is in the hands of a cartel boss across an international border. That is a different kind of desperation. That is a version of Rip where the internal governor, the part that keeps him from going completely off the rails, might finally come off entirely. What happens next is likely a search operation that begins with intelligence gathering and escalates into something much more brutal than anyone planned. Rip will need support. The ranch can hold the land, but it can't fight a cartel's infrastructure alone. This is where the arrival of familiar faces, from ranching allies, from connections built over seasons of this shared universe, becomes not just emotionally satisfying but narratively necessary. You don't go to war against a cartel king on his own turf with 2 people and a pickup truck. You go with an army. Beth's role in what comes next is potentially even more interesting than Rip's. Because Beth operates in a space that Rip doesn't. She understands power structures, legal leverage, financial pressure points. If Mariano has assets that can be frozen, relationships that can be exposed, business interests that can be threatened from multiple directions simultaneously, Beth is the person who finds those vulnerabilities and drives something very sharp directly into them. Season 2 might be Rip's war physically, but it could very much be Beth's war strategically. And Kelly Riley's comment that Season 2 is not just the Beth and Rip show, that it will feel like an ensemble with all lead characters contributing, suggests Beth is going to be deployed in ways we haven't seen before. Beulah's trajectory is one of the most unpredictable elements heading into the new season. She is a woman who has committed sins she can never fully account for, who has watched the consequences of those sins ripple outward and destroy people she may or may not have cared about. Rob Will is dead. Carter is gone. The ranch she has been complicated with is now